On today's episode of the Mark Titus Show, college basketball is back, and the Buckeyes might be back. Oh, my God. Ohio State might be back. I'm so excited about that. The game of the night last night, Gonzaga destroys Baylor. Got to talk about that. Got to talk about, is this more of a sign of what to expect from Gonzaga, which is to say, is Gonzaga, should they be number one in the country? I'll just say it. Is Gonzaga the best team in the country after what we saw them do, or some of us saw? It was very, very late for most of the country, but a lot of you probably stayed. If you're watching this show and listening to this show, I imagine you're a college basketball junkie and you watch that game. Do we come out of that and say Gonzaga is the best team in the country? Do we come out of that and say, oh my God, Baylor has a lot of problems? Both, neither. What is the overreaction to night one of the top 10 tilt? The top 10 tilt between Gonzaga and Baylor. Gonzaga, it was over almost immediately. It felt a lot like the national title game, except in reverse. I know Baylor took an early lead there. Like Gonzaga jumped out to 8-1 lead, I think, and then Baylor took like a 9-8 lead. But then for the most part, this thing was over early and was never particularly interesting in terms of the outcome. But there is stuff to talk about there. Otherwise, the Buckeyes, oh my God, what a surprise. I'm feeling things about this Ohio State team, and we're one game into the season. So I'm doing my best to not get too carried away. But yeah, as far as the stories from last night, it was Gonzaga looked awesome. And the Ohio State-Texas game was supposed to be, if not Gonzaga-Baylor, that was supposed to be the best, maybe second best game of the night. And Ohio State led wire to wire. I was very excited about that. Other stories that emerged yesterday for me, the freshman class that I've been so high on across the country is performing very, very well. I'd like to shout out a lot of those guys, talk about some of the stuff. Speaking of the Ohio State game, Trey Johnson was fucking bonkers for Texas. This kid is very, very good. There's so many good freshmen across the country. Derek Queen at that is his real name, by the way, if you're If you're new to this guy at Maryland, he's going to be an all-time great for the Terps, and had a 20-20 game last night for Maryland, and his name is Derek Queen. But yeah, I thought Kentucky looked awesome. I thought Duke looked awesome. Purdue is an interesting team, and I think Purdue is going to be a team that we'll talk about a lot this year because, obviously they have had great success the past few years. A lot more question marks, but they got the Big Ten preseason player of the year who had it's in the eye of the beholder what type of game he had. 15 assists. Is probably going to lead the country in assists this year. Also had 6 turnovers, and turnovers were a problem for Purdue against Corpus Christi last night. So they're going to be an interesting team all season. Otherwise, I don't know. It was a great start to the season, a fun start to the season. A lot of offense, a lot of high scoring games, a lot of shots being made. I'm fired up that the season is here. We didn't get we had DePaul hit a buzzer beater to go to overtime to beat Southern Indiana. We had Texas A&M miss 3 shots at the buzzer to take UCF to overtime. There were some good games, but as far as like the games we circled going into the night, they ended up not being. Ohio State took care of it, wire to wire, led Texas, and Gonzaga beat the absolute fuck out of Baylor. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of things to be excited about. College basketball is back. Let's get into it. All right, as much as I want to talk about Ohio State, I don't want to set the tone at the very first show we do to start the season with 2 guys wearing Ohio State stuff, talking about the Buckeyes. I want to be very careful this season to not make this an Ohio State basketball show, but I got to be honest, Tate, I'm very fired up. So
that's you being humble. Let me say that.
We are going to talk about it, but can we do Gonzaga Baylor so that way I just don't want to set the tone. I don't want people that are like, I heard some things about this Titus guy and this Titus show. I want to check this Titus show out, and they turn it on. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube or whatever, and you throw on the show, and you see 2 guys wearing Ohio State shit. And we open the show talking about how great the Buckeyes are. That might send the wrong message. That is fine, but that might send the wrong message.
You are overcompensating here because I would say that if this was 2, DePaul grads, there's a good chance we start off.
Absolutely,
with Ohio State.
Absolutely.
But talk about Gonzaga. That's fine.
Gonzaga Baylor. My opening thoughts on Gonzaga Baylor. Like I said at the top, wasn't really much of a game in terms of outcome. Gonzaga had this one in control the whole way. I think my big takeaway. Beyond just like Gonzaga good, Baylor bad, Gonzaga, is going to be a problem all season. Baylor has things to work out. Well, yada, yada, yada. Like the obvious, just look at the final score and you could jump to these conclusions. I think Baylor basketball, and I'm doing my best to not panic about it, but I think Baylor basketball has a cultural problem defensively. Wow. And they have had this problem for the last 2 years. And if you want to make the argument that Jerome Tang leaving the program has made their defensive identity their defensive identity has gone with him when he left the program. The evidence is stacking up. And last night, this is year 3 now. This is the start of year 3 without Jerome Tang on Scott Drew's bench. And I'm not saying Jerome Tang is responsible for all of it. I'm not saying that that he was actually the puppet behind what made Baylor basketball great, and Scott Drew, or the puppet master, I guess. And Scott Drew was just there on the bench, and Jerome Tang was the one calling all the shots. But the timeline is interesting, Tate. That Baylor has always played great offense. Baylor has always had guards, like going back to, like 15 years ago now, like at least Darius Dunn, like guys like that. They've always had like dudes that could score the basketball. They've always had that's never been a problem when you're watching Baylor. What made Baylor really ascend to the heights that they eventually won a national championship was how good they were defensively. And there were times when Scott Drew was flaming out in the NCAA tournament, which that was the reputation about him when he was one of those guys, like every other coach is. You're always a coach that can't get over the hump until you do, and then all of a sudden you're a guy that we're going to trust is going to win it every year. That's how it always works. He was a guy that was a choke artist in March. He will never get to a Final Four. He will never win anything. He'll never win a Big 12. And the reason he got that reputation was because his defense, by and large, there were a few exceptions. There were teams that were long and athletic and were exception, but by and large, I felt like his defense was always a question mark. He was throwing like crazy matchup zones out there. I remember watching Baylor games like 15 years ago and thinking they have a ton of talent, but defensively they're just throwing a bunch of shit against the wall to see what sticks, right?
And that's what they did last night.
That's what they did last night. And the way they became the Baylor that now commands respect, and that like the reason everyone was tuned in last night is because Baylor is a name now in college basketball that grabs your attention. They have ascended as one of those, I don't know, blue blood elite, whatever term you want to call it. Like Baylor basketball in this generation of college basketball matters, and should, if you're a college basketball fan, you should be paying attention to what they're doing in Waco. But I will say what made them so good was the way they dominated Gonzaga in the national championship was defense. They had fucking dogs on defense. From the get-go. Yep. Yeah. And the last 2 years, that has fallen off a cliff watching Baylor. So I think going into last night, it wasn't like on the forefront of my mind. I wasn't like, man, all eyes are on Baylor's defense. This is the only thing I'm going to be watching. But man, I don't know, like 4 minutes into the game, I was like, fuck, this feels like what Baylor's been the last couple years, which is just, it's not a bad team. Like they have dudes. They're going to score the ball. They're going to be hard to beat throughout this season. And I think they're going to be fine in terms of, the NCAA tournament will roll around. They'll probably be a top 4 seed. They'll probably be ranked all season. But that was my big takeaway was like, if I'm Scott Drew, after the last 2 years of having great offenses, having shooters, having like lineups where you throw a bunch of guards out there and they can get shots, and scoring's never been a problem for them. Defense is what has limited their ceiling the last 2 years. And to open up the season, granted, you are on the road against a very, very good Gonzaga team, a very deep Gonzaga team, but to open up the season with like zero heart, with throwing shit against the wall, Tate, that's what it was more than anything else. Is like they're coming out in a 1-3-1 matchup.
Matchup zone, go 3-2. They're all over the place.
Should we do a 3-2? Should we do a 2-3? Which one? And then like the players are looking at each other like, which are we in zone? Like two players are like, I thought we were in man. I thought we were in zone. And guys are wide open on Gonzaga. I don't know. That was my big takeaway was Baylor has to figure some shit out. And if you want to panic and overreact to one game, you would say this is actually kind of a cultural problem the last couple of years.
Yeah, that my reaction to you saying that seems like a pretty big overreaction to the first game. Like I get where you're coming from, and that seems pretty deep, but also playing Monday morning quarterback, looking at the situation Baylor was going into last night.
Yeah.
Like Gonzaga's returning 75% of their scoring.
Right.
Baylor has to start. They're bringing in 3 new starters. This game is being played in Spokane. Like looking back, this was a situation where you can kind of see how Gonzaga rolled. And then Gonzaga comes out and shoots 42% from 3 and Baylor shoots 14%. So I guess my point is I'm not off the Baylor train, and I don't think you are. But you're saying it's like a bigger thing than like, hey, that's a tough opener to have.
Yeah, if the last 2 years, which the last 2 years they were good. They won. They were 23-11 in 2023. They got a 3-seed loss in the second round. Last year they got a 3-seed loss in the second round. They were 24-11. They basically had the exact same year 2 years in a row. They had among the best offenses in college basketball the last 2 years. Yeah, you're right. They're not gonna shoot threes as poorly as they did last night every game. Like if shots are falling for them, it's a different story, and maybe the concerns about the defense are overblown. But I think if the last 2 years hadn't happened and we were coming off of the heel, if this was 2022, say, and Baylor had just won the national championship, and that was the first game we saw since they won the national championship, wouldn't care at all. I'd be like, damn, Gonzaga looks pretty good. It's more the last couple years since, and it lines up with, I just can't get out of my head that it lines up with Jerome Tang leaving. It's like Jerome Tang left, and then
it adds up, and it seems like you're more so saying that this was a Baylor problem last night. You have to give credit. Gonzaga was an absolute machine last night as well.
Gonzaga does feel, I said at the top that I told you the idea of them being the number one team in the country. I do feel like they feel like the closest thing to a finished product out of the gate because of what they return, you know? So I do think that an argument could be made that, like, to start the season. Now, is Gonzaga going to be the best at the end of the season? We'll find out, but a lot of these other teams will improve. But for what they bring back and how well they finished the season last year, yeah, I mean, an argument could be made that they are the best team in the country right now in early November.
We had just come off watching, I'm sure we'll talk about, the Ohio State-Texas game, and I thought Ohio State did a good job knocking down shots. Gonzaga did an incredible job of finding like their shots that they made, and they shot 42% from three. They didn't feel like they were making tough shots. They were moving the ball. They had 25 assists.
25 assists.
I mean,
25 assists.
That was a good bat. And here's the thing: they had 25 assists. They had shot 42% from three, and they dominated in the paint as well.
Yeah,
that was a finished product last night in the opener.
And they have depth, man. I know they really only went 8 deep, which is not. That's not usually 8 deep's not deep or not deep. That's pretty just standard. That's just a standard rotation.
That's just basketball.
It's just basketball. But I feel like maybe it's not depth. It's versatility. They have roster versatility where I feel like they can throw a bunch of different combinations out there, and they have a big lineup, and they can move guys. They can move some of their big dudes to the 4, and I mean they're playing EK along with Ben Gregg as their starting lineup, and EK could play the 5 for sure. So like they can go smaller, they can go bigger. They have some of the big dudes are versatile. They have guards that bringing in Battle and the portal is huge because he's not going to be their best player this year, but he gives them another wrinkle that you have like a 3-guard lineup now that just gives you a bunch of versatility. And they're old. They're all like experienced and have been around the block. And I would be very excited if I was a Gonzaga fan.
And they're balanced is I think a word.
Yeah, that might be what I'm looking for.
The fact
balance,
that now when you score 101 points, like the stats are going to look pretty good after the game, no matter what. But they had 5 dudes in double figures, 2 more with 9 points. You're out there. Nemhard only had 6. This could be from all over the place.
Yeah, and if they all commit to that, which I have no reason to believe they won't, if they all commit to winning over stats, that's going to be a beautiful team to watch. If it doesn't become like I have no reason to believe, but that's just something that it does happen on teams. It does happen where guys are like, wait a second, I thought I was the best player. Graham Ike is like, I thought I was the best, and Battle's like, I transferred here to be the best. You told me I was going to be the. As long as that doesn't infect their locker room, dude, they're going to be. If Nimhard's fine scoring 6 points and
right.
Ike's gonna get his, but if Battle's fine having nights where he's like, no, I'll just play defense and shoot when I'm open, they're gonna be very, very tough.
And isn't that's Gonzaga's identity though? Like they're a well coached team, they're an experienced team. I would be shocked if we come in, in February and we're like, yeah, Gonzaga's struggling with someone wants to be the man.
Yeah. Huff was good off the bench. I like that guy. I'm looking up the heights of all these dudes. But Greg is 6'10", Huff is 6'10". Stromer was fucking stroking it, dude.
He was stroking.
That guy was stroking.
And he comes off the bench.
And he comes off the bench just hitting 3 threes. I think Baylor's gonna be fine in terms of like being a good team. I do think defense is a serious concern, and they need to, if they have real aspirations of making a Final Four, that's something I'm going to be paying attention to with Baylor all season because they have scores, man. Like Roach is, Roach is a guy who's been around long enough that like I think people have seen his warts through the years to where you forget that he is actually good, and he'll have his moments where he reminds you how good he is. Edgecombe, the star freshman, had a very, very bad game until he shit all over Joe Few.
We haven't even talked about
he shit all over. Oh my God, dude! Imagine beating a top 10 team to open the season by 40, and
It's not the story.
Really, the only highlight in the story coming out is your son getting just fucking obliterated.
It was, I don't know. I would love to hear Mark Few's thoughts on it because his team just came out and they looked like a well-oiled machine and dominated a top 10 team. And number one on SportsCenter's top 10 this morning is going to be his son that he put in as a victory celebration, getting nuts stuck in his mouth.
Nuts in his mouth. Nuts in his mouth.
That's going to be number one.
I think Baylor's gonna be good though. I think they're gonna be fine. The right kid off the bench for Baylor, the freshman, he was a surprise. I didn't know anything about him, and then he was balling out. And they have dudes that not only can they shoot, and they weren't hitting shots last night, but those shots will fall. They can get to the bucket, and I think that was what excited me about you see the vision with Baylor. That excites you that you have multiple guys that can get downhill, get to the rim, draw two, kick it out. They just have to figure out defense, and I think like it kind of snowballed for them. They weren't hitting shots. They let that carry over to defense where they were disjointed all night. They weren't really sure what they wanted to run. There was nothing they trusted defensively from the coaching staff and players' perspective. There was nothing that was like we need some stops here to put something together. Let's turn to this, line up this zone defense, this man whatever it is you have in your back pocket where you're like, this is our defensive unit. They don't have that, and they need to figure that out. But otherwise, I mean, the talent's very obvious there, and I think they'll be fine long term.
We're gonna find out Saturday. They go right from this game. They have Arkansas on Saturday.
They do. Is that Arkansas?
I believe it's.
Or no, that's in
It's at American Airlines Center.
That's in Dallas, right? That's in Dallas. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Yeah, Arkansas. That'll be a good game.
So if the defense is a problem, it's gonna be a full display on Saturday.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, we'll find out soon enough.
That's the thing about starting off with these big games. I understand it. I like how Baylor took this game. It's in Spokane. Like that's a tough opener. You're about to be 0-2 if you can't beat Arkansas.
I know. Yeah, but I love it. That's they got St. John's too coming up,
and then UConn.
That'll be a great game. Oh my God. Oh, that's in Bahamas. That's right. They're in the.
We should go boots on the ground for that one.
I can't, dude.
Just in case we need to get.
I can't. I want to be in Maui.
Oh.
I'd love to be in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
You know that.
I just think at some point, we need to get eyes on this defense, not off the TV. Yeah. Boots on the ground. I
would love to go to the Bahamas, but I'm gonna be fucking grinding my dick off in Maui. Unfortunately,
I'll be in Columbus, Ohio.
I'm going to be working so hard in Maui. Gonzaga has Arizona State next, and then they got San Diego State. I'm just looking at their schedule now. West Virginia is interesting. Kentucky, UConn, UCLA. Yeah, they got a typical tough non-conference. The Mark Titus Show is brought to you by DraftKings. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. First time betting, new DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Titus. That's code Titus, Titus, for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, I've put it off long enough. Let's talk about the Buckeyes.
It's time.
It's time to talk about the Buckeyes. We got our first taste of, well, not our first taste, because we got some at the tail end of last year with Jake Diebler, Diebler ball last year. But this was the first, like, the program is molded in his vision, the roster is molded in his vision, and the style of play is molded in his vision. And like I said earlier, this was supposed to be the second best game of the night. This was supposed to be, honestly, for most of the country, this was probably the game of the night because they were probably like, I'm not going to stay up to watch Gonzaga Baylor,
right.
but you have Ohio State, Texas. What was it? What did it close at, like 2-point spread?
Yeah, I think it was
half,
three at
one point.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was. But the point is like, if you're a neutral observer, you're like, that's going to be a close game. Two brands I know. 1.5.
It
was 1.5. Yeah, I thought it closed at like 1.5.
Yep.
On TNT, Grant Hill's on the call with Candace Parker and, all these.
In front of 300 people,
in front of 300 people in Vegas.
That was crazy.
But anyway, this was I'm not saying this was a bigger matchup than Gonzaga Baylor, but it was as far as the opening night goes, this was supposed to be one of the better games. And for the Buckeyes to come out of the gate hitting everything, Tate, it wasn't that we were making every shot that was awesome. It was that we were taking them, honestly. And I got so excited and jumped off my couch. I don't know, like probably 5 times in the first half because Ohio State just confidently stepping into shots and dudes like being okay with missing shots was such a breath of fresh air. And I don't mean to like overstate it. I don't think some Ohio State fans will tell you that like Holtmann was the worst coach we've ever had in the history of the program, and like guys were there were guys that were playing confidently under Holtmann. I don't mean to like say that everybody was scared, but it was very clear from the start that an emphasis with Jake Diebler is going to be 1, guard play. I love our guards. I love our backcourt. 2, versatility, guys shooting threes. Aaron Bradshaw was not particularly great, and I don't love, long term, I don't love him, just catching and shooting when he's wide open, but
that's a mindset, though.
I do love the mindset. I do love that Jake Diebler is telling his guys, if you're on the floor, you're on the floor to shoot the ball, and if you're open, shoot the ball. So you can always rein guys in. You can always take confident guys and kind of like coach them up and like pull them back in. It's hard to take guys that are scared shitless and have tight assholes when they're out there and don't want to shoot and try to get them. That's way harder. So I was very encouraged by that. We are not a perfect basketball team by any stretch of the imagination. I do not expect us to open the game hitting our first 26 threes or whatever the fuck it was. We hit everything.
It was 8-0 in a blink of an eye.
I texted you this during the game. I think it's going to end up being Micah Parrish. He's going to have to be the guy that does this, but I want more guys. And this was, I said this about Baylor earlier, even though they lost by 40. One thing that stood out to me was Baylor does have guys that can get downhill and get to the rim. And Ohio State, that was one. As the second half wore on, I wasn't as concerned about it. The first half, that was a problem. Like I was like, dude, we're hitting threes, but like we made 1 2-point field goal in the first half.
We had 38 points in the first half, and we had hit 10 threes.
10 threes.
That is as unsustainable as basketball.
It's not sustainable. No. So I want to make sure we still have dudes that can get downhill, get to the rim. Because eventually, if the scout is out, that the only reason we're driving is to draw 2 to kick it out to shooters. Then they're just going to stay attached to shooters. You're going to dare like a Michi Johnson to finish at the rim. Thornton has a nice floater. I like Bruce's floater. I think it's I'm panicking a little too much about that. But when it was really like the end of the first half. We were hitting so many threes, and then the end of the first half, the offense got a little stagnant, and there was no. Yep. Texas was staying attached to shooters a little bit more, and we couldn't finish at the rim for shit. And I started to get a little panic about that. But Micah Parrish was great in the second half, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I would say this. I got to call it as I see it. I'm very happy with Ohio State's performance last night. You can tell that's culturally how hard we play, how we're playing for each other. There's a clear shift in what's going on with Jake Diebler. At the end of the day, though, we did shoot the ball 50% from the 3-point line.
We were 14 for 28 from the 3-point line, yeah.
And that's not going to happen. Like Junie Mobley. Okay, I can't believe we've made it the entire show so far without mentioning his name.
I love him, Tate.
Did you order his jersey last night?
I did. I ordered 2 of them. I ordered one for just in case I put on weight this season. I ordered one size bigger. Yeah.
Like a break in case you need it.
Yeah.
But he comes in, he plays 13 minutes. The balls he has for his first college career shot to be, where was that from? I thought it was going to be a backcourt violation.
Dude, he was so deep the very first time. He was 4 for 4 from 3.
4 for 4, only played 13 minutes and impacted the game as much as anyone.
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know.
He's not going to fall off. He's never. I saw enough last night to be confident he will never miss a shot. Never miss a 3. He will never miss a 3 in his career. He will be the greatest shooter of all time.
I guess
he's a true freshman. 4 for 4 from 3, and they weren't like the toughest shots in terms of like it just wasn't prime JJ Redick coming off a pin down with 2 guys' hand in his face as he's fading away type shit, but they were not easy. These were not easy shit. These were not easy threes. He was 4 for 4.
He was awesome. I guess now I'm just battling like the internal debate right now on Twitter, and everyone is saying like this is a top 10 team. This is Ohio State team. That's where I'm like, guys, I'm the biggest Ohio State fan. We
don't get carried away because we for all of Holtmann's flaws, winning in November wasn't a problem. Winning games in November was never his problem. It was January. So, like, we do have to sort of wait and see with this team in that regard. I will just say I care less about the how do I say this? I care less about reality and I care more about how I feel, honestly. And
So That's where we're differing.
And
right now. You feel good this morning.
I'll just say this, man. I had more fun watching Ohio State basketball last night than I've had since I honestly, off the top of my head, and I'd have to go back and actually look through the schedule because I'm sure, like, when we beat Purdue,
right?
When Zedke was stripping Zach Edey, I had probably had fun there. But honestly, as I was watching last night, I thought the last time I had this much fun was probably the game in the Dean Dome when Dwayne Washington went crazy and we beat Carolina by 25. Because it wasn't just that we won. It wasn't like Texas is not going to be a Final Four team. Probably they could be. I don't know. They have some talent. Trey Johnson.
They were down a guard.
Trayvon Mark might end up being their second leading scorer on the season. Probably will be. But it wasn't that it was like, oh my God, we just beat the best team in the country and whatever else. It was just pure joy to see a team spread the floor, shoot confidently. There was not a single guy that took the floor that was like, I'm nervous. I don't know if we belong here. I don't know. We haven't made the tournament in a few years. Like, boy, we're playing a ranked team to open the gate with Jake Diebler's start of his career, game one. There's a lot of unknown. I don't know how this is. Every single guy that was out there was like, I'm here to score. I'm here to
rebound,
play confidently, to rebound. I thought the defense was great and for the most part. So I think that's what it was. I was just like so pleasantly surprised, and I was having so much fun watching them that no, I don't think this is the biggest win in Ohio State basketball in the last few years. I don't think we should be puffing our chest and say we're a top 10 team, but I will say I had a great fucking time.
No doubt. That's perfectly said. I guess where I'm coming from is last year when Diebler took over, we were damn near at rock bottom.
Yeah.
And we finished 8-3 and everyone we weren't supposed to be there. We weren't supposed to beat Purdue. We weren't supposed to. And then coming into this, it was like we shocked the world and all of a sudden became favorites in one night. And I don't like that. Like we still
I honestly don't know if we should be ranked yet. I think
get Texas out.
We're going to probably be ranked. I think the Buckeyes, in a perfect world, I think we're like the third team receiving votes next week, but we won't be. We'll probably be ranked like 24.
We'll be ranked, and then we do have A&M. We're at A&M next week, but they did lose. What flaws did you see? Because everyone's high on the Buckeyes right now. What are some things they had 16 assists, 15 turnovers. Yeah, that's not good. What other things do you think?
I think Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw, who are highly thought of recruits that are coming from Duke and Kentucky respectively, and didn't have great years for their programs, and were thought of as like projects that will take and will maybe a new environment will get them going and all that. They kind of looked like they kind of looked like the players we know them to be, and I was hoping they would be a little bit better, but they can be great defensively. I think those two guys can have impact defensively because they're just so long and athletic, and I think that's going to be where they make their mark. But yeah, them. Yeah, they both look raw. They both look raw.
I was excited. There was as much hype surrounding Bradshaw coming to Columbus as that was who I was most excited about bringing in. When you tell me that he finished with 1 rebound last night.
Yeah.
2 points, 1 rebound. That you texted me mid-game and you said maybe bringing in Devin Royal and playing small.
I think Devin Royal at the 5 and playing small ball is going to be a lineup I'm going to get very excited about as the season wears on. But I love kind of what we were saying about Gonzaga, the versatility and the balance and all that. I think that stood out to me is that we had 10 guys in the game, in the first 10 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because of fouls or injuries or anything else. It was Jake and I also didn't feel, and maybe it was this, but I also didn't feel like it was Jake trying to figure out lineups. I think he kind of knew what he was doing, and maybe that's me just carrying water for him a little bit. But it wasn't like an act of desperation of like, fuck, I don't even know who my lineups are. It was more of like, this is our identity. We're going to play a lot of guys. Now, Big Ten play rolls around, games start becoming more meaningful. Obviously, rotations will tighten up, but to start the season and the messaging to the fan base is we are going to run. Mm-hmm. We are going to shoot a lot of threes. We're going to shoot them confidently, and we're going to play a lot of guys. And by playing a lot of guys, you can now turn to the guys in the huddle, in the locker room, and say, bust your ass. You need a breather. We got another dude that can come out and feel comfortable. Having said all that, Bruce Thornton did play 36 minutes. So
right.
It's not like it's not like we're doing the John Calipari 2015 Kentucky platoon system, but
even Austin Parks gets in there. He only got 6 minutes, but he was in there. Like Diebler is giving him confidence. He's coaching him up. It showed that he is going to use his bench.
Yeah. But I didn't think Ohio State played anywhere close to perfect, and for us to go wire to wire. On a ranked team who has, I mean, if Trey Johnson's not going to be a lottery pick, this might be the greatest NBA draft of all time because that kid can score the basketball. Holy shit.
He was awesome, 29 points. This freshman class, you may never have been more right about something than how
good this freshman class
is. And you've been saying it for months. But Trey Johnson, I don't know, did you hear the comparison at halftime where it's like he looks like Kevin
Durant? Huh. Where did Kevin Durant go to school?
He was only there for a year. Oh, Texas.
It was Texas. That's where he goes to school.
I see the comparison.
Okay, now I see it. You know what's crazy is I didn't actually see it until I realized they both went to the same school.
And then you connected the dots.
Yeah, and they're both right-handed too, right? And they're both
right-handed. They're
both the same race. Those are important. You have to get those right. That's you basically.
If you have those three things, you can make that comparison.
You can make any comparison as long. What you absolutely cannot do is cross-racial comparisons. That's a big no-no. You cannot.
I really don't see that comparison.
You cannot. You can absolutely not do cross-racial. That's fucking crazy. You cannot do. If you have a left-handed player, you have to compare him to a left-handed player.
That's true.
That's 100% fact. You cannot take a left-handed player and say he reminds me of this right-handed player. That just breaks everyone's brain. And then when in doubt. Just go with the legend that played at the school that the guy plays.
Yeah, I think one thing that would help me out just visually, I think that Johnson needs to change his number. Go to 35.
Yeah.
Have they retired? Is that a thing?
I'm sure they have.
Damn.
I'm sure they have. I don't know. Did you see on the quarter zips they had the KD logo? I think that was new for Texas. I don't remember that being there last year. Maybe it was, and I'm just
he's got
as I used to be.
Not to change total subjects, but he's got so many pro teams now where he's saying, "Hey, I'm not." He said the other day, "I'm not getting a statue because I play for too many teams."
You got to go all in.
Go back
Texas.
to your roots.
Yeah. That's what LeBron did with Ohio State. Dude. As an aside, the quarter zips that we're wearing, the coaches are wearing,
in or out.
Did you see the logo on our logo?
Notice.
Oh my god,
logo, the one Diebler was wearing.
The whole coaching staff. Who gives a shit? What a bizarre thing to point out on night one of college basketball. But we're here now. The logo on the left chest, the Ohio State logo, was just massive. It was like,
oh wow, it
250% too big.
Yeah, that's zoomed in.
That's the biggest quarter zip logo I've ever seen.
And then you just got a little Nike over here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How about some balance over there?
Yeah. What are we doing? Let's get
This isn't an Ohio State podcast, but Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I told you that. I've told you this when we were talking about like this season college basketball. I don't want this show to be I have to push back on this. I'm a very proud alum. Ohio State basketball is the one sports team I care more about than anything else in the world. You, I think, are Ohio State guy. As I look over at you wearing Ohio
Titus
State
first told me this when he talked about coming on the show. He's like, "So your name's Ohio State."
Yeah,
but we don't want to make this an Ohio State podcast.
Right.
Maybe drop the Ohio. The Facebook.
Yeah. But at the same time, I want to talk about what I find relevant in college basketball, and I think last night that was one of the stories. The Buckeyes look great, and there were a lot of questions. They're picked 8th in the conference, and I don't necessarily think coming out of that game that that was like a fuck everyone that picked us 8th. We're obviously the best team in the Big Ten. There's going to be a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. But yeah, I'm very excited, and I do think. I think the people that are like we should be top 10 if that's crazy to me, but
we will be ranked.
We could eventually get to that point, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But I will say that coming out of last night and going into last night, this was the expectation anyway. But now definitively coming out of last night, I will say that this is we will make the NCAA tournament. We must make the NCAA tournament.
Breaking
and we
news.
haven't made the tournament in a few years, and that is the standard. That should be that's ultimately why Holtman was fired, is because you're not making NCAA tournaments. So it's not like I'm not trying to hang a banner over that, but like this team is good enough to make the tournament. This game, by the way,
I was gonna say, you said it last night. This game will go a long way towards us making the tournament.
It will. I think Texas is going to end up being a pretty good team. I don't know how well coached they are. I will say that they were sloppy, and it's early season college basketball, but they were sloppy, taking a bunch of dumb fucking shots, and I don't know. Kaluma is like. Arthur Kaluma is an interesting ball player to me. He didn't even have that bad of a box score, but like you watch him, you're like, that's right. That's why Creighton let you go, and that's why like I don't know. He can be really really good, but boy, he's frustrating as fuck. I think some of the transfers they brought in were a little lackluster last night, but Trayvon Mark didn't play, and when they get him back, Trey Johnson's the truth. He's gonna be a bucket for them all year. But I don't know how good Texas will. Like I don't know if Texas is Final Four good. I do think Texas by the end of the season will be a quality win.
Right.
And that is important.
And we stack up
when bubble time comes.
If we can stack up a couple of those, I mean, we have our non-conference. We have Texas, we have Auburn, we have Texas A&M, we have Kentucky. You win 2 of those 4 games, and in March, those are going to stand out if we are a bubble team.
I want to say this about the freshman class because I'm talking about Trey Johnson. The Will Riley at Illinois had a monster game last night. Derek Queen, who again that is his real name. That probably won't be the last time I say that's his real name, but it just sounds every time you say it out loud, it does sound funny.
You keep saying that. How do you know?
Oh, that's a good point.
Like
you maybe it's not his real name.
I want to see a birth certificate.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe it's not his real name at all. But he also, to my knowledge, he doesn't have an NIL deal with Dairy Queen, so that's a mistake.
Dairy Queen, that's a good one. I like that. You got to get in the NIL game.
The guy named Derek Queen should have a.
That's a good idea.
It's very creative. Every time I say it out loud, I have to pause and be like,
"That is his real name."
That's his real name, Derek Queen. He was a fucking monster for Maryland. The Duke guys were great, which we could talk about the Duke game here in a second. But I just want to say before we dive too much into the freshman class and some of these individual performances, I do think this freshman class, I said it all preseason. I'm saying it after one night. I do think this freshman class is going to be fucking awesome. I think, one, from a draft perspective, but that's always the case. Every time you look at it, that mock drafts, the freshmen are in this era of college basketball, even as people become enamored with transfers, freshmen will still always be the most desired prospects from an NBA standpoint. But I think there's going to be actually there will be actual impact freshmen all across the country, and I think night one was proof positive to that you are seeing a ranked Texas team, and Trey Johnson in his first college game scores 29 points. Frankly, didn't really have any help offensively, and is carrying Texas, is carrying a ranked team in a marquee matchup to open the season. And Derek Queen, that is his real name, by the way, had had 20 and 20 for Maryland. I saw a stat. I saw something that no Maryland player, and you know how these Big Ten these stats go, where you're not really sure what you're reading because they always throw in so many qualifiers that I don't know if this was the first 2020 game or if it was the first 2020 game on a Monday night in November or first 2020 game
above 60 degrees
wearing white jerseys above 60. Yeah, I don't know all the qualifiers, but my interpretation, I think this was the first ever 2020 game for a Maryland player since Joe Smith in 95. I think this was the first one in
that was one I saw.
95.
They were throwing out the first 2020 games. That's when I saw first 2020 game in college since 2022. Would that be true? There
There's
hasn't
no
been
way.
one
Edie,
in 2 years.
Edie surely.
Yeah, that can't
right?
be right. But the other one, first freshman game, first 2020 game by a freshman since Michael Beasley in 2007.
Really?
That's a real one.
The first of 2020 of any
by
freshman?
a freshman. Since
See, this is what's hard about the Big Ten schools is you just
we need
never,
a fact checker.
Yeah, what's hard about these Big Ten stats, man, is you just don't know. You don't know what all the qualifiers are. So you come and you'll learn this soon enough that you come sit down in that chair and have that microphone in your face. You're gonna be like, you're not gonna believe this stat. So the first time a guy scored 35 points ever, and then you're like, that's just not right. And then you go back and you look at the graphic, and it's like,
yeah, I'm gonna retract the one that I said that was the first 2020 game in 2 years. Like Zach Edey had a 30 and 20 game.
Yeah,
but also maybe a 30 and 20 game doesn't count as a
2020 game.
It's like a triple double is not a double double.
That's not what it is. A rectangle is
always a square.
Is not a square, but a square is always a rectangle. What do you thumbs up in, Cody?
Right.
About what? He said.
I've thrown a million things.
He just said a million things, and you just gave him a thumbs up and said he's right.
Thank you, Cody.
What does he write about?
Derek Queen. That's his real name, by the way.
Love that. That's
What
good
is he right
confirmation.
about? What was he right? That was
That was a real stat. 2020 games since Michael Beasley in Kansas.
That was the first. That was the first freshman.
Yeah.
Of across the country.
Yeah.
To have a 2020 game since Michael Beasley. All right. Good stat. That's a good stat.
You heard it here first.
But I think the freshman class being this good might not be an accident. Shouldn't be quite a surprise because we are in an era where the transfers are becoming more desired. Like I don't need that to explain that to people, but that was I'll be condescending and explain it anyway. That it was one and dones and we were all like enamored with go get the top freshmen, go get the best ranked recruiting class. That's the key to success. And then if you can if one of your 5 stars can have like a mediocre season, you can bring him back next year, and then you can bring in more 5 stars. Holy shit, you're gonna be really rolling. And that was kind of the formula. And then somewhere along the line, as the transfer portal became more of a thing, and also restrictions on transferring went away, and guys can just pop around and play immediately and all that. Coaches were like, fuck recruiting 16-year-olds. Why don't we just get the guys who are proven? I don't want to say they're going to go away from transfers, Tate, but I think the pivot to transfers was it was more pronounced because I really, as I was sitting on it last night, I was like, did COVID play a part in this? And what I mean by that is, was last year's freshman class the last freshman class that the development was not what we quite expected, because this was a freshman class that, as they were coming up in grassroots basketball, had a couple of years where you're fucking playing in masks and tournaments are getting canceled and like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the math because so this class is the class of 2024.
This class, because not only is this class awesome, the class after it's awesome, and as far as I can tell, like every class moving forward is going to be awesome. But we had a few classes there where it's like this is a little weird, and the only thing I can think is that and it makes sense in my brain that like these dudes as they're coming up in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, however old they were, and those summers when they're supposed to be. Now, they still – COVID was so long ago that now they did – if say you lost your 9th grade year of development, you still had like the rest of high school. But what if it is just as simple as that? It's like they were like pushed back a year in terms of like having high-quality reps against each other and and going to camps and going to – because that is what development has become in recruiting, is like you're just constantly all summer. You're a 5-star. You're going here. You're playing against other 5 stars, and then like these fucking academies across the country, they're playing each other. But then there were a few years with COVID where they weren't, and I wonder if like that whole era of like the weird development, we're finally done with that, and now we can move forward where like every freshman class is back to like we got a 5-star. He's going to be good. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I'm doing my timeline from just when I coached high school basketball. This is the first class that has had 4 straight AAU summers. Like this class could have had an impacted freshman season, but by that summer they were back to going full on camps. They were going full on AAU schedules, training schedules. So it makes sense.
And I'm not saying that like, Isaiah Collier didn't have an awesome year at USC like we thought last year, because there were 2 months where he had to play basketball with a mask when he was in 8th grade, and that's really the reason.
Right.
But I do think that's, I mean, if you think back to that time, there were a lot of coaches making that observation, like this is hampering development, and we're like unsure about. I don't know. I think at the time that was a common thing, and then we kind of like we as a society just kind of moved past COVID, and like we're like, all right, everything's fine, let's move forward. But I think we were seeing like a residual effect maybe with the talent and the maybe not even just the talent, because there were good freshmen last year, more the evaluation or more the just kind of. There was a time, especially last year, where if I told you your school got 5-star recruits, you're like, all right, well, I need to know more. And it does feel like this freshman class, holy shit, across the board, with the exception of maybe like the North Carolina guys who are a little slow out of the gate. I don't know. They're fucking stacked, dude.
Yeah, I mean the evidence is there. On this list it is freshman after freshman after freshman that shined in their debut last year.
Yeah. And the freshmen we're going to talk about most, both on this show today and throughout the country, throughout the rest of the season, I should say, are the Duke guys. And you were watching. I was more locked in on Purdue than the Duke game, because Purdue against Corpus Christi, they were letting them hang around a little bit in the second half, and I was just like, I need to keep an eye on this one. I'll flip over to Duke when I feel good about Purdue winning. So I missed the initial.
I threw the first Knipple text to
Knipple
you, and then you threw like
onslaught.
the next three.
But then I flipped it over, and holy shit, dude, they're going to be so fun. Am I off base?
No,
am I off? Am I excitement for this Duke team?
No, you are 100. The two freshmen, they started 3 of them, but Knipple and Flagg led the team in minutes last night, and you were, spot on in the way where Cooper Flagg, in my opinion, impacts the game in a way that Knipple doesn't. Like he finished with 18 points, but there was a time where he had rebounds, assists, wasn't really looking to score much. He had a putback, he had a couple free throws here and there. He is a great basketball player. Knipple is a bucket.
He's a bucket.
There was a time I had to go all caps last night. The sign of a bucket to me is if you are in transition, you get a steal in transition, and you don't go pass, layup. If you get a steal and it's like, hey, I'm shooting this shit, and he did that and he hit it to have like a personal 10-0 run, he might be, his game is my favorite person. I do have one problem though, Titus.
What's that?
I think he has a punchable face.
Yeah, I was trying to monitor the reactions to Con Knipple last night from college basketball fans, and it does feel like the initial read on him is that he's going to be hated.
Yeah,
it feels like he's got because he's a white guy with swagger at Duke.
He is white. Did you see that?
Yeah, he is a white man. Because I'm a white.
But Cooper Flagg, like we talked about this, I think Cooper Flagg is going to be beloved. He is awesome.
I think so.
I think people are going to be.
But why can't Knipple be? Why Knipple's going to be? He's not like a. I think one of the problems people have with Duke white guys through the years is that they're not actually good. They're just like shitheads. This is like a perception. Is like you're not actually like a. You're not that talented. You're like your Greg Paulus type, where you're just like
Grayson Allen was a
yeah. Grayson's like, he's carved out an NBA career for himself, but yeah, to that point, like Grayson Allen was never like the best player in
and he was
the world.
Thought of as like dickhead first basketball player.
Yeah. But Knipple's not that. He's going to be a top 10 pick. He's a bucket. There's no way you can watch him and be like, this guy is not really that good. He's just a shithead who's like sliding over late to take charges and like playing a little dirty, and like he's just a fucking bucket, dude. But there's something about his.
I'll tell you what it is. You have to know when you are a white dude from Wisconsin going to Duke what your label is going to be. Like if Con Knipple was at Indiana right now, I think he would be taking the world by storm.
They'd be building a statue already.
Yeah, if you're a white dude going to Duke, like you're about to be told that you are the villain.
Also, maybe everybody has decided you just can't hate Cooper Flagg, so we have to find somebody. I don't know. I'm not going to hate Con Knipple. I like this Duke team a lot. I'm not bashful about that whatsoever. Knipple has. I'm getting Dalton Connect vibes, and maybe it's the maybe that's a new comparison. Is if your name is just if you have the K, yeah. If you pronounce the K with the K in and it's not silent, then I'll fall in love with you. But
is he 6'7"? That's what they're.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're
catch and shoot guy. He's not just a shooter, by the way. He can.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Score.
Watching, you're talking about the freshman class is more developed, more polished. That's a perfect example because that dude's a catch and shoot scorer going off 2 feet, ball fake, score up and under. That dude's a hooper.
Jab series. I'm not here to say he's gonna have a year like Dalton Connect had, but for me, going back to what I said earlier about like I care more about how I feel when I watch basketball. He's been just a pleasant surprise. I remember vividly. It's crazy what I remember. I can't even remember like my fucking zip code as I'm filling out forms, but I remember. I remember vividly my current zip code, by the way. I fill out shit and I'm like, where do I live again? But I remember vividly watching Tennessee at Michigan State exhibition game a little over a year ago, and I am pausing my TV. Who the fuck is this guy, Dalton Connect? And just looking around an empty room like,
you guys seeing this?
You guys seeing this? And there's no one else in the room. I'm like, you seeing this shit? Holy shit. And I kind of have a similar feeling with Knipples. Like, I didn't know. I knew Duke was going to be good. I knew they have a good recruiting class. But honestly, if you stop the world when you hear that Duke has a great recruiting class, the world will never be turning. Like, it's just like It's every fucking year. So it's like I'm not going to stop what I'm doing and fawn over a great recruiting class at Duke. I knew Cooper Flagg was going to be good. I didn't know a ton about the other guys. And when I actually started paying attention and I saw not just how skilled Knipple is, but the way he approaches the game. It reminded me of Dalton Connect. He's a cold-ass white boy. He's a bucket getter, and he's not just a shooter, and he's got size, and he can score at all three levels. And I think he's going to be their leading scorer. I mean, he was last night. It's easy to say coming after one game, or maybe it's an overreaction. I don't know. I don't know how Duke's locker room anticipates this season going. I think Knipple, because what you said, he's a bucket. He's out there to get buckets. That's what he's meant to do. Cooper Flagg's a ball player, and he's going to have his fingers on everything, and he's going to be trying to impact the game in every type of way. Con Knipple is out there to score, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a leading. I wouldn't be surprised if he averages like 21 a game or something, and Cooper's like 19 and a half.
Like 17, 7, and 5, something like that. These two freshmen they are going to lead Duke. Are they good enough to lead them to a national championship?
I don't know. I still think what I said earlier, or what I said last show about Duke is going to be true, which is I think Tyrese Proctor, who played well. He played fine last night. 3 for 5 from 3, and 1 turnover, and he was all right. They don't really need a ton from him right now, but I think he's going, him and Caleb Foster especially, but I think it's Tyrese Proctor are the two guys that are gonna be the difference for them, because I do think there are going to be games where they need to lean on the veterans. They need to almost like steal wins, like they just need like the shots aren't falling, foul trouble, just crazy shit's going on, and you need guys that can just calm everything down. And I don't know if those two guys can be it, because they have been up and down throughout their career. So hopefully this year.
Has there been a team like what freshmen have led, like group of freshmen have led their team to NCAA championships? Like I know you played on Ohio State team, 2 great freshmen. These aren't
Kentucky.
Okay.
Anthony Davis was the one. Was that really the only one?
I'm just trying to like close my eyes and think, in March, are we going to be talking about how 2 white freshmen have led their team to the national?
Yeah, I mean it was Kentucky. That's the team. Kentucky in 2012. Anthony Davis.
Are these boys on Anthony Davis watch?
The hype for Cooper Flagg is
true.
Anthony Davis level, I will say. And I'll say this: I think Con Knipple is better than Kid Gilchrist and Marcus Teague, and Con Knipple is a better basketball player than anybody Anthony Davis had as a sidekick. I feel like Anthony Davis's year at Kentucky that might be it's like the best one and done season of all time, and that's gonna be hard to top. And he didn't score a ton, but like, holy shit, the impact he had defensively was crazy. I think I think Duke is gonna have the talent in the end, but it can't just be those two guys. It's gonna have to be Proctor and Foster and the rest of the bench. By the way, my guy Mason Gillis that I said would
50%,
2 for 4 from 3. I'm telling you.
And there will be a game where he hits 8 of 14.
I'm telling you. 8 might be a stretch.
Really?
8 of 14 from 3?
You don't think? Let me pull up our...
Might be a stretch. I think there will be a game where he will... I said he's going to hit 5 threes. He's going to have a 5-3 game.
He hit 9 last year.
He hit 9. He did hit 9 last year. I think he will hit... put me down for 5, and there will be 1 to 3 games that he hits 5 threes. 1 to 3.
We don't need to go back and forth too much
3.
on this. I will take the over 5 as his season high. Shooters shoot, dude.
I think, he might have. Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing. We're both complimenting Mason Gillis. We're just trying to figure out a way to package that compliment.
All right, I may have been overreacting with 8. I retract to 6.
I don't think he's going to get 8 off. I don't think there's going to be a game where.
I guess my thing is, you're saying at some point in the season, the 2 freshmen aren't going to have, like, they're going to need something from their supporting cast. Having a career 41% 3-point shooter is one of those people
pretty good
that need to step up.
Yeah.
And
speaking of Mason Gillis, I want to talk about the team that he played on last year.
You were locked in yesterday.
I was locked in on Purdue. They were interested. The first half, Purdue was so fun. Miles Colvin was hitting everything. He's a guy I'm really excited to see take the next step, and I feel like this is obviously the year for him to do that. But also he's coming off the bench, which I wasn't paying enough attention to Purdue in the preseason. Apparently, I just assumed Miles Colvin was going to start. He only played 17 minutes. I don't know. Does Matt Painter hate him? I don't know what's going on. He was 4 for 7 from 3. He is if if it's not him, it might be Cam Heide. He's probably the best athlete on the team. He's a freak athlete. He was hitting all of his shots. I don't fully understand why Miles Colvin didn't play more for Purdue, but that first half they were hitting everything. Braden Smith turnovers were a problem. That's going to be the thing with Purdue all season, and it's been a thing, honestly, really since Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer got there, is this idea that long athletic guards can swallow them up. We saw it happen in the national championship. Now, Purdue's not going to have to play very many teams, if any team this year, that's going to have the guard play that UConn had last year, so you don't really need to worry that much about it. But at the same time, over the course of their career, it's not a consistent pattern, but it is a little bit of a pattern that when these guys, and I'm not just stereotyping because they're not the tallest, strongest guys and they're white dudes from Indiana. Like this, it is a serious concern when they get athleticism and they get pressured a little bit. They can throw the ball all over the gym a little bit, and you start to worry. Now, in the past, Zach Edey's been a hell of a release valve that when you're running around shitting your pants, you can just throw it into him and have him dunk it, and teams have to always be wary of that. Like, you can't pressure too much because you got Edey down by the basket just waiting there, so we got to kind of pull back to guard him. But, there's always that balance. So I'm curious this year how much – I'm just curious what that's going to look like and how defenses approach Purdue. But having said that, Purdue went ice cold in the second half shooting threes, and I think that was more the story. They were hitting everything in the first half. They go ice cold. They ended up winning by 17, so it wasn't like but it wasn't like they almost got upset last night. But anybody that was watching that game and the 5 minutes to play, it was a little dicey.
It was a 3-point game with 6:43 to play.
Yeah. And I'm slightly concerned about defense. I'm slightly concerned. Like, Braden Smith's going to lead the country in assists. I have no doubt about that.
What a stat line.
They're gonna surround him with shooters. He is going to just have the ball in his hands and just play like, he doesn't have Edey there anymore, but they have like 3 fucking 7-footers that they cycle around. He's going to get a bunch of high ball screens and dictate the offense, and he's one of the best passers in the country. But turnovers are a problem, and I'm worried about Purdue going up against size and athleticism, and Corpus Christi had that, and they wanted to try to swallow those guys up, and they're not even one of the better teams that Purdue's going to play. So I think that was the concern if we're overreacting.
How would you say? So obviously, literally and figuratively, they've got big shoes to fill with Zach Edey being gone. They do have the 7'4" freshman. He had 13 and 7 last night. How did he fill in? How is the game different for them? Were you impressed?
He's still going to. So the thing with Braden Smith was the critics that would say Braden Smith was a Zach Edey merchant, and the whole reason that he had a good season last year is because he uses ball screens. It was Edey's rolling to the basket. Like, this is the stereotypical play for Purdue. Say is Braden Smith comes off a ball screen. Edey rolls. The gravity from Zach Edey rolling to the basket brings everybody in. Braden Smith's like, I'm going to get to my spot, hit the Chris Paul elbow jump shot where you're kind of fading away a little bit. And that's just like what his shot was. And he was very, very good at them. And, there was concern, I guess, that maybe without Edey there, is he going to be able to get these shots off? Is he going to be able to run the offense? I will say, having 7-footers, multiple, setting high ball screens and rolling, even though they're not as skilled as Edey, even though they're not as dominant as Edey, it does sort of have the same impact, at least from one night. Now, we'll see when Big Ten schedules roll around and you have guys that, match up better against the Purdue big men and all that, and they don't maybe need to worry so much about a 7'4" guy rolling the basket. But yeah, last night I was like, yeah, he's gonna be fine in that regard. Like the ball screen, as it turns out, Zach Edey was good at setting ball screens, but also if you're 7'4" and fucking massive and take up a bunch of space, you're probably going to be pretty good at setting ball screens as well and creating some open opportunities for Braden Smith. So I think he's going to that's what they're going to expect out of Purdue's big men, is that they're not going to be dumping the ball into them and expecting post moves. They're going to expect rebounds. They're going to expect set screens for Braden at the top of the key, and I think they're going to be fine in that regard. But I think like losing Lance Jones is going to be a problem for them. I don't know. They're going to be a very interesting team, and I feel like being ranked 14th makes a lot of sense, because I think if you squint one way, you can see a very, very good Purdue team that can space the floor, shoot a lot of threes, and they have a cohesive group of guys that have played a lot of basketball together, and great culture. you kind of look at the warts and you're like, I could see this going poorly in some aspects as well.
Yeah, I think Cody last week had us submit our top 10 teams. You didn't have Purdue in your top 10. But when we talk about the Big Ten, they're always the first name off your list.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still. Did your stock rise, fall? Is it exactly the same after watching?
It's exactly the same. I think Purdue is going to be a B+ team all season. I think that's what we're going to – they're never going to be that bad. But I would be surprised if there are moments where you're like, oh, this team can go back to the Final Four. I don't think we'll ever really see – I don't think they're ceiling – I think they're a high floor, low ceiling team.
Okay.
Know? Like I just think that they'll be – I feel like more
Which
likely
is the Big
than
Ten.
not,
That's what you've been saying.
they'll be
Big
ranked
Ten is.
between like 10th and 25th all season. And they'll have a respectable year and probably make the Sweet 16 and lose, and that'll be it. And and you'll be like, yeah, it was a fine season.
Okay.
it was a fine season. But yeah, I if they could space the floor and play all the shooters, I got to figure out what's going on with Miles Colvin. I got to make some phone calls. I don't understand how he played 17 minutes.
Yeah, that stat line doesn't
that's
add
interesting to me because he was their best player in the first half. Well, Braden was probably their best player, but he was hitting everything and. Yeah, I don't know what exactly happened because when I was watching, it wasn't like he was turning the ball over, making dumb mistakes. It wasn't like, as far as I know, he's not a bozo off the court. Maybe he is. I don't know.
Are you impacted at all because he's from Indianapolis? Is this a little?
I love
bit
my
of,
Indy kids.
Yeah, this might be. But then again, you look at his stat line. It tells me he should be playing more basketball than what he did.
Yeah. No, he's a freak athlete too. He's I can't believe these fuckers have. Oh, the Burgess kid, the freshman, they list him at 6'11". But Berg is 7'2", I think, and Jacobson's 7'4".
7'4". They got another 6.
And they got So they're just gonna be a rotating cast of 7-footers. But
why do they have so many? Why do?
I don't know.
Should everyone else recruit some 7-footers?
I don't. Yeah, why not? Why? But I also think that they're out there just to sort of take up space and set screen. I don't know. Edie was an anomaly. Edie was actually skilled and
right.
and you could lean on him heavily. I don't think they're going to do that with these guys. But yeah, Purdue's going to be fascinating. Purdue's going to be a fascinating team. But Braden Smith with 15 assists and 6 turnovers. Again, you want to look at the assists, you're like, yeah, that's the best passer in college basketball. You want to look at the turnovers, you're like, yikes, that guy cannot handle athleticism and being pressured a little bit. And I think both are probably true. I think both are going to end up being true, and that's what's going to make them fascinating all year. Quick break to talk about our friends at Cars.com. Want to find a trustworthy dealer? Want to find a place that has dealership reviews from shoppers like you? Cars.com offers the latest research, shopping tools, and dealership reviews to help every shopper find the perfect car. You can shop by monthly payment or filter by features to find the cars that fit your budget and needs. Visit Cars.com and start exploring your next possibility today. And also thank you to Cars.com for the Employee of the Month parking spot out in front of Barstool HQ here in Chicago. Cody, do you know who... We are in a new month. It's the start of November. I just wanted to make sure we have this all lined up. Do you know who won the Cars.com Employee of the Month parking spot for this month? I just want to give him a shout out. Oh, it was me? It was me? Oh, it was me. Oh. I did. I won the Cars.com Employee of the Month spot. I had no idea it was coming. And when they told me I had won, they explained that I won because I helped Jersey Jerry out on his stream. So basically, I showed up, I hit 10 threes in a row, and that's what won me the parking spot. And I got to say, if hitting 10 threes in a row is all it takes for me to get that spot, no one else will ever have that spot again. I will just show up here once a month, hit my 10 threes, collect my Cars.com front row parking spot, and keep it moving. But shout out Cars.com. Visit Cars.com and start exploring your next possibility today. What else? North Carolina had an interesting game.
Close. It was they were losing 71-69 with 6 minutes and 48 seconds left to Elon. Now they finished the game on a 21-5 run, so it looks fine.
My concern about Carolina is the freshmen did not look great when I watched them against Memphis in the exhibition. The freshmen did not look great last night against Elon. Drake Powell had a stretch where he had one stretch in the first half where he looked pretty good. And did he hit a 3 and then get a steal and a bucket? I think he got like all 5 points.
Right there.
It was like all right in the moment,
Yeah.
right in one little stretch. But they're going to need these freshmen to step up because the fact that this was it was a 14-point game, like you said, they pulled away late, but it was close. It was close throughout the game to where it felt like a like you kind of felt like you saw where Hubert Davis's head was at with rotations and whatnot, and I'm worried that Hubert's gonna go back to his Iron 5 bullshit, and he's just gonna like tighten the rotations, and the 5 guys that started are gonna be the 5 guys we see from Carolina, who I think are good players, but like they need the freshmen. Carolina's season is gonna hinge on the freshmen. RJ Davis had 24. He was 3 for 11. Didn't shoot threes well, but he still gets his points. That's a classic RJ Davis game. Is like kind of chucking a little bit, but also you look around the rest of the roster, and he's like, that's kind of what I need to do for us to win. Not that they're bad and they don't have scores, but that's just like how that's what RJ Davis is. He scores 24 points, but he goes 3 for 11. He also has 7 assists. So it's a good game, but it's also like not the most efficient game in the world. I think they need the freshmen, dude. That's just where I keep coming back to is Jalen Withers hit a couple threes. That was pretty shocking, to be honest. He hit 4 threes all last season. He hit 2 last night. Washington is a project still. I really like. He's an Indy kid, by the way, or not in Indianapolis. He's an Indiana kid. I really like his potential, but he still feels like a little bit of a project. And I'm just worried that like if the freshmen don't develop like they want them to, and if Tyson, who's supposed to be the knockdown shooter for them, and he goes 0 for 3 from 3. Mm-hmm. Like I'm worried Hubert's gonna have a short leash with these guys, and we're just gonna see 35 minutes a game from like the Iron 5 again, which led them to a national championship. But it also, I was excited about this Carolina team coming out of the Memphis exhibition because RJ Davis didn't play in that, and then now all of a sudden I'm like, fuck, did I just lose all of that goodwill?
Yeah,
did Carolina lose all that goodwill?
They're the only top 10 team yesterday, and Cody, remember this for next year. Please remind us, hammer the top 10 teams in their opener. The top 10 last night just dominated the games that they were supposed to dominate, except for UNC. UNC is the one who played a close game. And Elon, not a great team. They were under 500 last year. So it just, I don't know. That's the one team that there are a lot of question marks surrounding in the top 10. Yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to overreact to one game, but that's going to be like they have 2 5-star freshmen, mm-hmm. and they got 29 combined minutes out of them and 10 combined points out of them, and it's their first game ever. And you got to be patient.
Yeah, but everyone else's first game ever.
That's the problem. Is this freshman class is so good? You're looking around the rest of the country, and you're like, I might need more from these guys. And especially, I'll say this too. Like Carolina recruiting has been interesting. The last, I don't know how many years, but Carolina recruiting has kind of fallen off. Like they've just had like weird vibes around the recruiting. To where they finally get some talented guys. I don't know.
Yeah, 2 top 15 players in the class. In this class that is,
they need to hit on these guys because they're, the last few years, like the Carolina recruiting pipeline is not as strong as you would expect it to be for a program of that stature, and I'm not really sure why.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you think?
I don't know.
Is Carolina? When
I didn't really think about it until I was
cool.
Yeah, I didn't really, but like Duke's getting all the 5 stars and the, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I to be honest, I didn't really recognize it until I just now was talking about these 2 freshmen. I was like, it's been kind of a consistent.
Do they have
I'm trying to think of the last time Carolina had like, the blue chip guy leading the way for him. I don't know. What else? I would say this broad observation around the country: a lot of scoring, a lot of high scoring games, a lot of shots being made.
You were knocking on it in the off season. You were saying everyone's talking about how they're playing fast. Titus. They're playing fast.
A lot of excuse me, a lot of teams playing fast. A lot of teams hitting shots. There were, I think, 40 teams that scored 100 points.
That's insane.
Yesterday. I think it was around 40 teams, 39 maybe. Scored 100 points.
That's crazy.
Now, some of them were playing like, the Little Sisters of the Poor or whatever. What would Gordon Gee? You remember when he said that, Little Sister of the Poor?
Yeah, he got in a little trouble for that.
I know he did, yeah.
Was that when you were in school?
Might have been. A lot of some of these schools are playing like, anytime you pull up your score app and it doesn't even have a logo,
Yeah, that's
It's
tough.
pretty interesting. But there's a lot of high scoring games. A lot of fun offenses. One team that I haven't talked about yet that I want to talk about. Speaking of high scoring offenses and teams I'm very, very high on, the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm very high on, and I'm high on them because I'm very high on Mark Pope as a coach, and they play a ton of guys. They had, I think, 6 guys in double figures, and a 7th scored 8 points. They had, how many assists did they have?
That's
30?
the thing. They had 30 assists to 7 turnovers.
30 assists, 7 turnovers. They hit 11 threes, shot 46% from the field. Wright State, they beat Wright State by 41. I think they were favored by like 20. So again, you have to apply context and say like, they blew out a team they were supposed to blow out, but at the same time they won by 40.
Right.
They won by 40. They scored 103 points. And they're sharing the ball. They're pushing tempo. They're very, very deep. Kobe Bryant might be the best shooter in the country, if not for Junie. But yeah, they got dudes, and I am fascinated or drawn to, I should say, that's a better way to put it. I'm drawn to teams that have the depth, that have the pace, that have the shooting, which is why Alabama is like, the team that you keep coming back to as the best team in the country. So and that's why like Gonzaga, it's like they're bringing dudes off the bench that can contribute and can provide flexibility with lineups and all that sort of thing. Those teams are the ones that stand out to me, and that's why I love this Kentucky team. I don't know their top end talent. Like I don't know. I don't know. Like do they have how many future NBA players they have on this roster, and that might ultimately be their problem. But I will say that the way they play is very, very fun, and I think there's some serious juice to the Kentucky program with Mark Pope, and that's fascinating to me because, again, the high-profile coach that was there leaves, and you hire a guy that, nationally isn't super well known to one of the best programs in the country. And I think his start went as well as anyone could have expected.
So how do you think that plays out in the future? Because it's a huge contrast of what Kentucky has been to what they are now. Like right now, they're not top-end talent, but they move the ball really well, and they're really well coached. Is he going to start getting top-end talent because he's Kentucky and because he's a good coach?
I hope he doesn't just blindly take the 5 stars or the mock draft guys. And I'd like to think he's smart enough to like identify his guys that fit his style of play, because I think that is way more important than people think it is like to find like if every coach, if a 5-star calls you up, if a top 5 recruit calls you and is like, I want to play for you, every coach is going to say sure.
Right. Not
Not every coach is going to be super fucking excited about it. Like every coach is going to be like, we have to take this guy, but I don't know how many coaches there are going to be some coaches that once he gets on campus, once he's in the program, they're like, gotta be honest, I would have rather had 2 or 3 4-stars that'll grind their dicks off and move the ball and all that sort of thing. And that's not to say every 5-star's that way, but I think that you have to be careful with who you bring in and not just get enamored by recruiting rankings. So I'm hoping he still uses some discretion with that. But to answer your question more broadly, yes, I do think that the talent will come. I think that the proof of concept will be there, and then the Kentucky Big Blue machine behind him will get he's never going to recruit on the level Cal was.
Right.
But,
I mean, he has a top 15 point guard, top 15 player in next year's class. That's his top recruit.
Yeah.
Cal was getting multiple.
Yeah. Like 4 top 15 players,
but
I don't think he needs that though. I think if you create a culture offensively, where you're running and gunning and shooting with confidence and making play, like it was crazy to see. I was watching a little bit of the game and just the way they're pushing tempo and the way they spread the floor and run the floor. It's not just that they run the floor; it's how they run the floor, and everyone's running with spacing in mind, and it's beautiful to watch. And I really like Mark Pope, and I think he's an awesome dude too. So I'm excited about Kentucky.
Titus, a week from tonight, Kentucky Duke.
It's gonna be good.
It might have to be.
Buckeyes play Kentucky, by the way, in December in New York, Madison Square Garden.
Ooh, road trip. Something to think about.
Anything else I missed? I need to talk. UCF upset Texas A&M. Storm the court. You had a problem with that night one. I don't have a problem with storm the court.
You had the perfect response. I do have a problem with storm the court because
Oh no.
No, I love
no.
Titus, don't paint me to be this curmudgeon. I'm a big storm the court guy when it is time to storm the court. They were 5-point underdogs yesterday against a team that's okay. Texas A&M's okay.
They're ranked 13th. They're
Preseason.
Yeah. I would storm the court every game. I would.
I couldn't argue
it's
that.
It's so fun, dude.
I said, Titus,
have you stormed the court? Did you storm the court in college?
Did they storm the court on your senior night?
They did, yeah.
I stormed the court once.
You were there?
Hell yeah, dude. Come on.
That's respect, dude.
I stormed the field.
Respect.
You
stormed the Capitol, I know, but I was thinking.
So I've stormed the field, the Capitol. No. I really enjoy it, but I think when you do it too much, I think it waters it down.
Yeah, but I don't think they're doing it too much. If we look up and UCF has won 6 games at home and they've stormed the court 5 times, I think you might have a conversation about doing it too much. I doubt that's going to happen though.
5.
I think it's. I don't think you think about it. I think that's the joy of the court storms. You don't even think about it. You're just like, holy fuck, this was awesome. Let's go run out there and celebrate. Yeah,
that's fair. I guess my thing, UCF. Here's my message to you: storm the court on Friday against Fort Wayne, and then if you're gonna storm,
you want them to storm every time.
I want you to storm until they say
right.
You can't storm anymore.
Just keep storming. Are the Cavs the best team in the NBA? By the way,
I've tried to tell you this.
Save it. I need you to do Mostly Sports. Brandon's not going to be here. We'll talk about it on Mostly Sports. Let's save the Cavs for Mostly Sports. I want to.
He's silencing me again to our listeners here.
All right. I think that's it. No games tonight. Election. Wednesday, I think a handful of teams play. Rutgers basketball.
Rutgers opens up. UConn opens up. Arkansas, Indiana.
I think Indiana. We get our first look at Indiana. And then Friday's a big one. Carolina at Kansas, and a lot of good ones this weekend. So we'll be back Friday. Are we doing Friday?
Friday morning.
Friday morning. We'll be back Friday morning. Talk more ball, dude. That's what I'm excited to have basketball back in my life, and I'm excited to have Junie Mobley in my life. I'm excited to have the Buckeyes back. We might, if we. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave our listeners and our viewers with this. I will do all I can to not make this an Ohio State show, but I can't hide when I'm excited about certain things. And last night I got very excited. So moving forward, I will not break. I promise to you, we will not be breaking down every Ohio State basketball game to that degree. But if the Buckeyes continue to play like they have been playing, and by have been playing, I mean one game into the season,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to be put in a tough spot because all of my instincts are going to be like, I'm so delighted watching them play. So
ultimately, Titus, it comes down to if you don't want the other team to celebrate, don't let them. If you don't want us to talk Ohio State basketball, someone's got to beat them.
Someone's got to beat us. We play at A&M, and then the schedule gets a little easier. Evansville, Campbell, Green Bay. Oh, we got Green Bay at home. Shout out Gottlieb. Gottlieb stuck around a little bit.
Sweaty Gottlieb.
Sweaty, dude. But he was he didn't. They were hanging around.
That was awesome. His former team
hanging around a little bit. Hanging around. Gottlieb was sweating like a motherfucker.
He better shower before his radio show today.
You know what I love about Mark Pope and Doug Gottlieb? They're wearing suits, man. They respect the game. I think that's what I loved about Mark Pope watching last night. I was like, that's a man who respects the fucking game.
You get that Chicago State job, you are not wearing a suit.
Respects the game, dude. Wear a suit. This is business. This isn't.
Titus is a jumpsuit guy.
This isn't a game. Well, actually, I just said respect the game. This isn't a game. I guess it is a game.
Respect the sport.
Respect the
profession.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was a nice. Nice to see Doug Gottlieb sweating his balls off.
Sweaty.
In Stillwater. All right, that's the show. We'll see you guys Friday. College basketball's back. Be excited. Goodbye, everybody.